Hi, my name is Eden, and in this video I'm going to be going over how we started our garden here in New Zealand from scratch for basically no cost at all. So let's get started. So the first thing that we did to start our garden is we got some wood chips. We got like a whole bunch of wood chips, like a whole truckload of them, and then just dumped them in this area which was all bare grass. So that helped get the weeds in control. And also the wood chips, now we've been here for about 4 to 5 years, and the wood chips, they break down and they improve the soil, because when we got here it was like all clay basically. Just look at how good the soil has become. And this is all basically just from the wood chips that have decomposed over the years. I've made a separate video about wood chips and I'll put it up the screen here or here. Another thing we also did to improve the soil was to get some manure from our chicken coop, because we have quite a few chickens. We also put the wood chips in there, and then their manure goes and mixes with the mulch and becomes really good fertilizer actually, that we put all over our garden. Because the first thing we did when we got here was not to really focus to planting everything straight away, because if you're planting in clay, we've noticed it becomes really difficult to like dig in the soil, and if it becomes wet, then it's also very muddy, or when it becomes dry it becomes like rock hard like concrete. So that's what our main goal was when we got here, to improve the soil, and with the wood chips it really helped improve the soil. What we also started doing when we got here is we started making compost, which also improves the soil. So we have a few bays that we've made from pellets, for also free of cost, because we got them from around for free. They're literally everywhere here if you go on the streets. And so we made those and we started making compost again with the wood chips. And we asked some lawn mowing companies and they dropped off some grass here, and that helped us to make some compost. And we also, again, our chicken manure, and got kitchen scraps and dry leaves and just kind of scrounged around. And we also went and asked like a veggie and fruit shop that like threw away all their rotten fruits. So we collected those and also made compost with them, for again free of cost. So one thing we also started doing and still continue doing today now is growing things vertically, like peas, beans, cucumbers, all these types of crops. We try to grow them vertically because that saves a lot of space. And even if we didn't have a trellis, we just use a bamboo stick or some stakes. Trellising is great because it allows more space to grow other things in the garden. In the first couple of years when we got here and started gardening and growing our own food, we focused a little bit more to easier crops like pumpkins, corn and lettuce. I'll pop a photo up here showing the whole wheelbarrow of pumpkins we grew that year. So this is what our garden looks like after about 4 years of what we've done with the wood chips and chicken manure and improving the soil. We've put mulch still down the pathways, and we're growing our crops in the middle. Now it doesn't look all that great because it's autumn now and we're transitioning from planting our summer crops into winter crops. And like I said, growing vertically for us really saved us a lot of space with this big bean plant here. In the first couple of years, just to improve the soil a little bit and to help the plants grow, we used some fertilizers like blood and bone to help improve the plant growth, because like I said before, the soil was basically all clay here, and it was really difficult to dig in or plant anything. And the crops that we grew that we didn't put like any other additional soil or fertilizer, grew really poorly. So that's why we also added some fertilizers to the soil to improve the growth. So one thing I also did is I made like a small greenhouse of greenhouse plastic, and I put that on top of our mulch piles, because if you know, a mulch pile, like if it starts to rot after a few days, it can become very warm. So I put that greenhouse on top of there, and I planted some seedlings like in the winter already, like even zucchini and cucumber, and we planted those in the spring and we put those same types of greenhouses and greenhouse plastics on top of them to cover them from the cool weather. And so even like in October we were getting like zucchinis, and then the people who would come would wonder, how do you have zucchinis so early? It was a great method for starting seeds instead of like a heat mat, which costs money and electricity. So one thing we used to do is, and now still do, is before we planted anything, we just check the area to see how much sunlight it gets, and that's how we like position our crops. Like the lettuce, we position them in an area in the back of our house which only gets around 4 to 6 hours of sunlight, but the warm weather crops like zucchini, tomatoes and corn, we position them in an area which get around 8 to 10 hours of sunlight. And this helps the plants, we've noticed a lot, because if you switch them around, then the warm weather crops will grow really slowly, and like the cool weather crops like lettuce will grow. They will grow fast, but they will become bitter and go to seed very quickly, especially in the summer, and it's not pleasant to eat bitter vegetables. So every hour I used to come outside and just check which area of our garden receives more sunlight than the others, and that's how we positioned our crops to grow. One thing we also started doing was succession planting, but I'll cover that in another video, how we did that. So make sure to subscribe to not miss that, and I'll see you in the next video.